Hello, friends, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Discussion Board, the sequel, Discuss Harder. I am your host, Russ Rolls. In her article on Betsy Ross, Laurel Thatcher Ulrich highlights the need for revolutionary heroines. Unfortunately, Betsy Ross, who has filled this role for well over a century, is problematic. Much of her history has been mythologized over time, and although sources indicate that she did sew flags for the U.S. Navy, there are no primary sources that directly link her to the creation of the first American flag. So if Betsy Ross is dethroned from our historical imagination, who will fill the void? Might I propose Abigail Adams? She is already fairly well known. She embodies the Republican values of her day, and a store of primary sources, mostly in letters to her husband, are easily available. Through the letters written to John, Adams gives us a window into the struggles through which Bostonians endured through the Revolution. In a letter to John in 1777, she writes, "There is such a cry for bread in the town of Boston as I suppose was never heard before, and the bakers deal out but a loaf a day to the largest families. There is such a demand for Indian and rye that a scarcity will soon take place in the country. 'Tis now next to impossible to purchase a bushel of rye. In short, since the late act, there is very little selling. The meat that is carried to market is miserably poor, and so little of it that many people say they were as well supplied in the siege," probably referring to the Port Act. This quote gives us a window into the lives of sort of urbanites during the war. Many of the struggles during the Revolutionary War were not just the facing of bullets and British cannon, but also in trying to survive on a day-to-day basis in these economic shortages. Not only does Adams give details on civilian life, but also comments on American military progress in the war. She writes to John while he is away in Europe, saying, "This year has not been very glorious to America. The unfortunate failure of their expedition against Rhode Island chagrined, mortified, and disappointed to such a degree that they cannot yet mention it with patience, for they had every humane appearance of being crowned with success and victory. Our arms have rather been employed in the defensive way. Our enemies, however, have nothing to boast of, since they have not yet gained 1 inch of territory more than they possessed a year ago, and are at least Philadelphia out of pocket. What the winter may produce, I know not. I wish it would give us peace, but I do not expect it." So in her words, we see an American taking stock of the defeat of the Battle of Rhode Island. It's one thing to read this assessment from a military official, quite another to hear it in the words of a citizen. She makes a measured, intelligent, balanced view of what happened. She doesn't give in to melancholy or pessimism over the Americans' defeat, but offers just sort of a balanced view of what happened. Finally, Abigail Adams was, in a sense, a progressive visionary who predicted the women's suffrage movement and a key figure in women's rights. This is probably the best known excerpt of any of her letters. She writes, "Remember the ladies, and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could. If particular care and attention is not paid to the ladies, we are determined to foment a rebellion, and will not hold ourselves bound by any laws in which we have no voice or representation." So you can just hear the republicanism oozing through those words, right? The idea of liberty and freedom and rights and representation in government and civic duty that come from her words there. In the article Revolution in Boston, 8 Prepositions for Public History on the Freedom Trail, Alfred F. Young proposes adding 5 influential individuals to the Freedom Trail whose stories are not often told. One of these people is Abigail Adams. Her strong personality, the Christian Republican values, truly exemplify the character of a revolutionary woman of her time, and she would be an excellent icon and person for public historians to put more on display. I am Russ Rolls, and thank you for watching.